Tonight you will be listening to John Lewis Esposito talking about the 5 Pillars of Islam from the Great World Religions series.
When we look at Islam today, as in the past, we see a unity and a diversity. Whether rich or poor, educated or uneducated, first world or third world, urban or rural, African, Asian or American. However different, there is one thing that binds all Muslims together: the 5 pillars of Islam. These are the essential observances or practices. Despite enormous religious, cultural, and political differences and divisions, all come together. Whether it's to pray 5 times a day, to go on pilgrimage, or to offer the zakat or the tithing. These and others we'll be discussing today as we look at the pillars of Islam. For the pillars of Islam are in fact the core and common denominator that not only unite all Muslims, but distinguish Islam from other religions. As we'll see, they are actually very brief and quite easy to understand or get down. Meeting these obligations reinforces the ongoing sense of God's existence in Muslim life every day. It reminds Muslims of their membership in a worldwide community of believers. The first pillar of Islam, the declaration or confession of faith. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is the prophet of God. A Muslim, therefore, is one who bears witness and testifies: there is no God but God, Allah the God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. The Shahada, the bearing witness, will be pronounced and heard some 14 times each day by Muslims who pray 5 times a day, and in fact at many other times and occasions in a Muslim's life. Allah, literally the God, is the Arabic word for God, very much as Yahweh is the Hebrew word for God, to be found in the Hebrew Bible of the Old Testament, and Deus, the Latin word for God, used for centuries in the Roman Catholic Mass. But who is this God? Allah is a God of might and majesty, of compassion and judgment. He is the creator, preserver, sustainer, and Lord of the universe, the revealer and the just judge. As the Quran says, He is Allah, there is no God but He. He is the knower of the invisible and the visible. He is the merciful and the compassionate. He is Allah, there is no God but He. He is the sovereign, the holy, the peaceable, the keeper of faith, the preserver, the mighty, the compeller, the sublime. Glorified be Allah above all they associate with Him. And so to become a Muslim, one need only make this brief, simple confession of faith. Again, there is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. For those of us who are used to Christian creeds and going to Christian services, one can appreciate the difference between what seems to be this simple sentence, however profound the beliefs behind it, and the rather lengthy variety of Christian creeds that we see in Christianity. The proclamation of this declaration affirms Islam's absolute monotheism, its uncompromising belief in the oneness of God, the doctrine of Tawheed, God's unity, and the idea that associating anything with God is idolatry. To associate not only other gods, but to associate other people, other values. This is the one unforgivable sin for those who do not repent. Thus, for example, in Islamic art, religious art, Islamic art tends to rely upon the abstract. You will not see a presentation of God, you will not see a presentation of Muhammad, and indeed the human form tends to be marginalized, although there are exceptions. But certainly within Arab culture that has been the case. And this is certainly true if one looks at the art and architecture of mosques. The second part of the confession of faith asserts that Muhammad is not only a prophet, but also a messenger of God. This may take some of us a second to realize this distinction. In Islam, you have both prophets and messengers. And so Muhammad is not only coming as a prophet, as a warner, as a reformer, but he is a messenger, somebody who brings a revelation, who brings a book. For Muslims, Muhammad is the final prophet and the final vehicle. He brings the final and complete revelation of the Quran. Like Jesus Christ, Muhammad serves as the preeminent role model through his life and example. Unlike Jesus, Muhammad is only a human being. Though Muslims believe that he was a perfect man or follower of God. And so the believer's effort is to follow Muhammad's example. He is the model, he is the paradigm. And so many of what the practices of the Prophet, what he said and did, came to be collected, as we'll discuss later, in a corpus of traditions or narrative stories to which Muslims look. This practical orientation of Islam then is reflected in the remaining 4 pillars of Islam. And again, note the emphasis throughout now on observance, on, if you will, orthopraxy, right practice or observance, rather than necessarily orthodoxy. The second pillar of Islam is prayer or worship, salat. Muslims pray, or perhaps worship, more correctly, 5 times a day. Daybreak, noon, mid-afternoon, sunset, and evening. In this way, the entire day is sanctified as they remember, worship, and find guidance in God. One experiences, in a sense, the presence of God. And this is to be found and captured in the Quran, where God says, I am near, I answer the appeal of the prayerful one, whenever he appeals to me. Let them respond to me and believe in me, so they can be directed. Chapter 2, verse 185. In many Muslim countries, reminders to pray or calls to prayer echo out across the rooftops. The muezzin gives the call to prayer. Indeed, modern technology has developed its own novel ways of handling this. From audio and visual reminders to wristwatches, clocks in the shape of mosques, certainly in the old days, I'm not sure today, most of them made in Japan, and computer programs. Salat or worship itself consists of recitation from the Quran in Arabic and the glorification of God. It's accompanied by standing, bowing, kneeling, touching the ground with one's forehead and sitting. Muslims can pray in any clean environment. They can pray alone or together, in a mosque or at home, at work or on the road, indoors, outside. It is still not uncommon in traveling in Muslim countries to see people stop on the street to pray, at a business meeting, or to see, as I have, on an airplane, or most recently, in the British Air Executive Lounge in London, a Muslim quietly going aside to face Mecca and pray. Wherever a Muslim prays, although not required, it is considered preferable and more meritorious to pray with others. This demonstrates and reinforces the common brotherhood, the sense of belonging to a common brotherhood, the sense of common equality and solidarity of that community. When they pray, Muslims face Mecca. They face the holy city of Mecca that houses the Kaaba, the house of God, believed to have been built by Abraham and his son Ismail. Originally, Muslims faced Jerusalem. Muhammad had expected that the Jews of Medina would in time accept the message of Islam. When it became clear that that wasn't the case, Muhammad received a revelation directing the change of the direction, or the Qibla, the direction for prayer, from Jerusalem to Mecca. Now, in addition to prayer 5 times a day, which can be carried on by the individual, by his or herself, once each week on Friday, the equivalent of the Sabbath, Muslims have a congregational prayer, the Jummah prayer. And here they go to mosque or to an Islamic center. Again, gathering every Friday. But it doesn't necessarily mean that one ceases work on Friday. This varies from country to country. So what is held in common is this obligation to the common congregational prayer on Friday, that this take place every week in a mosque. Now, what is a mosque? A mosque, or masjid, literally means a place of prostration. It's a building with a flat open space for Muslims to assemble to pray. Mosques, like churches and synagogues the world over, can be small and simple, or they can be grand cathedral-like structures. Some of the largest ones occurring, for example, in countries like Saudi Arabia, and more recently, the new mosque in Morocco. On one of the walls is a niche, or a mihrab, that indicates the direction, the Qibla of Mecca, the orientation point for prayer. Nearby is a pulpit or a minbar, from which the sermon at the Friday congregational prayer is given. In the courtyard or the garden, there will be a place for the faithful to wash, to perform their ablutions or ritual purification before prayer. Shoes are removed before entering the mosque, a sacred space, reminiscent of God's command in the Bible to Moses as he approached the burning bush. take off your shoes, for the ground on which you stand is holy ground. At the end of formal ritual prayer, individuals are free then to offer personal prayers, dua. These are prayers of petition or thanksgiving to God. The third pillar of Islam is zakat, the tithe or almsgiving. Zakat literally means purification. It's both an act of self-purification and a social obligation. Payment of this tithe purifies, therefore, not only a person's soul, but also what is given or distributed to people. It reminds Muslims, and this is the most important point, that their wealth is a gift from God, that they have an obligation to share that wealth with others. And we find, again, common variants on this in Judaism and Christianity in their forms of tithing. Zakat and Salat, worship, are often mentioned in the same Quranic verse, reinforcing its significance. And indeed, an early Muslim observed, it's almost a Muslim proverb, that prayer carries us halfway to God. Fasting brings us to the door of His praises. Almsgiving procures for us admission. Zakat, importantly, is both an individual and a communal responsibility, expressing worship of and thanksgiving to God by supporting the poor. It is paid during Ramadan, the month of fast. The zakat is constituted of a 2.5% tax on an individual's total wealth and assets, not merely on annual income. So it's total wealth and assets. Thus, Islamic law stipulated very clearly and specifically those areas covered: silver and gold, animals, agricultural products. Today, modern forms of wealth, bank accounts, real estate, stocks, bonds are included. Zakat is not viewed as voluntary. It's not simply a voluntary charity. It is an obligation incumbent on all believers. For all who have received from God have an obligation to give back. It is a way of taking care of those who are poor, needy, debtors, those who travel, those who are on pilgrimage, those who seek religious knowledge. Thus, zakat functions as an informal social security, at least in the past of Muslim society and for some today. It is a way in which the poor in society, even today, can receive help from those who are in a better situation. There are other religious taxes in Islam. In Shia Islam, there is the khums. Khums means 1/5. And for Shia Muslims, they pay 1/5, an obligatory tax to their religious leaders, who then redistribute it for a variety of purposes, from educational to developing seminaries to helping orphans. And there's the more voluntary forms of almsgiving called sadaqah. But it is zakat that is the obligatory form of almsgiving on all Muslims, whether they are Sunni or Shia. In early Islamic times, the zakat was collected by the government, held in a central treasury, and used to help the needy to build schools, hospitals, hostels, to defray government expenses. In this way, Muslims sought to fulfill the Quranic mandate. The alms are for the poor, the needy, and those who collect and distribute them, and for redeeming slaves and captives, repaying debtors, and in the cause of God, and for travelers. Thus God commands. God is all-knowing and wise. Quran chapter 9, verse 60. In modern times, zakat has been left to the conscience of individuals. Many people give it to poorer members of the family and those in their surrounding areas, as well as to others in more distant areas. However, some governments in recent decades, like Pakistan, have attempted to reintroduce the state collection and distribution of zakat. Highly contentious. The people worry about how the government will actually use their taxes, as it were. And of course, those who really do not wish to pay all that they should be paying worry about a government that's going to go right into their bank accounts and take the money. Indeed, when it was first introduced in Pakistan, people woke up in the morning to an announcement on television, lest they suffer, I guess, undue anxiety. The fourth pillar of Islam, the fast of Ramadan, occurs once each year during the month of Ramadan, the 9th month of the Islamic lunar calendar. This, it's important to note, is the month in which the first revelation of the Quran came to Muhammad. Ramadan is a time not only of physical discipline, but also spiritual reflection. During this month-long fast, Muslims whose health permits, and that's what's important, whose health permits, must abstain from dawn to sunset from food, drink, and sexual activity. Those who are sick, pregnant, weakened by old age are exempted. Muslims on a journey may postpone and make it up later. Though rigorous, the Quran makes it crystal clear that the purpose of fasting is not to be excessively burdensome, but to foster spiritual growth. As the Quran says, O believers, fasting is enjoined on you as it was on those before you, so that you might become righteous. Fast a fixed number of days. But if someone is ill or on a journey, then complete the number of days missed. And those who find it extremely difficult should, as a penance, feed a poor person. So whoever of you is at home, let him fast for a month. And let any who are sick or on a journey set aside an equal number of days at another time to fast. God wants things to be easy for you and does not want any hardship for you. So complete the number and give glory to God for the guidance and be grateful. Chapter 2, verses 183 to 185. It's important to note here that for Muslims, fasting is not a time of gloom. People welcome it, they look forward to it. Indeed, many Muslims who are not fully observant will fast during the fast of Ramadan. So fasting is not simply an act of self-denial or asceticism. It is a discipline intended to stimulate religious reflection on our human frailty, on our dependence upon God, and to focus on our spiritual goals and values, our identity, and to respond, for Muslims to respond to the less fortunate in society. At dusk, the fast is broken, immediately with a quick light meal, usually referred to as a breakfast, breaking the fast. Families and friends share, in fact, a little bit later, a special evening meal which follows, which is often a very opulent meal in terms of the number of foods, and indeed has very many special sweets. And I can tell you, as a Christian, particularly a Roman Catholic, who grew up with a different sense of fasting, this amazed me that you had special sweets served during that time. I remember when I was in Cairo, even though I had studied Islam, I was jet-lagged, and a Muslim friend of mine picked me up, brought me to the hotel, and said, I'll see you at breakfast. Well, I went to sleep early, and the next morning I got up, and I waited for him, and I waited all day. Finally, he called me in the middle of the afternoon. I said, where were you? I was waiting for you for breakfast. He said, I was there last night. I said, breakfast? Breakfast was this morning. And I completely disconnected that during Ramadan, breakfast means the breaking of the fast. So a much different time of the day. Many, having broken the fast, go to the mosque for evening prayer, which is followed by special prayers recited only during Ramadan. Ramadan is also a special time to recite or listen to the recitation of the entire Quran. Popularly, this is done by dividing the Quran into 30 sections or portions to be recited each day of the month. You'll also see it on popular posters that are sold in many cities. Near the end of Ramadan, the 27th day, Muslims commemorate the Night of Power, or the Night of Power and Excellence. This is the night where Muhammad received the first of God's revelation. The month of Ramadan ends with one of the two great feasts, or Eids, the feast of the breaking of the fast, the Eid al-Fitr. This celebration resembles Christmas or Hanukkah in its spirit of religious joyfulness, special celebrations, gift-giving. Muslims exchange cards, much the way others send Christmas cards, Hanukkah cards, Easter cards. The fifth pillar, and probably the most well-known among non-Muslims, is the pilgrimage or Hajj to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. It occurs approximately 60 days after the end of Ramadan. Every year, more than 2 million believers, representing a tremendous diversity of cultures and languages, more than 100 countries, from all over the world, descend upon the holy city of Mecca to form one community, living out their faith, reenacting sacred events from the past. At least once in his or her lifetime, every adult Muslim who is physically and financially able is required to make this pilgrimage, putting themselves completely and totally at God's service. The ritual of the pilgrimage commemorates and reenacts events in the lives of Abraham, Hagar, and Ismail, as well as we shall see, the Prophet Muhammad. Those who participate in this pilgrimage, men wear simple white, 2 pieces of white cloth to symbolize purity as well as the unity and equality of all believers. an equality that transcends class, wealth, privilege, power, nationality, race, and color. Whether poor or rich, you put aside your tattered clothes or your Gucci wardrobe. The idea is that you can't see the difference. Women are to wear modest dress or modest clothes. Their bodies should be covered with the exception of their face, their hands, and their feet. Approaching Mecca and throughout the pilgrimage, pilgrims will cry out, "I am here, O my God. You are without any associate. I am here, I am here, I am here." And indeed many, as they leave a city like Cairo or New York, will begin to say this on the plane in anticipation. And then as they approach Mecca, at the Grand Mosque of Mecca and in the adjacent areas, pilgrims participate in rituals that symbolize key religious events. Muslim tradition teaches that those who perform the Hajj with great devotion and sincerity will be forgiven their sins. And so many of the elderly and sick will have as a hope that they will die on the Hajj having been cleansed of their sins or shortly thereafter. Among the major rituals is the circumambulation 7 times around the Kaaba, a cube-shaped building, the house of God. That house believed to have been built by Abraham and Ismail. It symbolizes, this circumambulation, the believer's entry into the divine presence, reenacting, as it were, the movement of angels around the throne of God, around the heavenly throne of God. Kaaba itself is about 40 feet long, 33 feet wide, 50 feet high, and is covered with a black cloth with richly inlaid, embroidered gold thread of Quranic verses. In its eastern corner is the black stone, about 12 inches in diameter, which tradition says came from heaven, a relic from the original Kaaba, symbolizing God's covenant with humankind. Many pilgrims seek to touch or kiss it as they pass the black stone in their circular procession around the Kaaba. Another ritual is walking or running between the nearby hills of Safa and Marwa, commemorating Hagar's frantic search in the desert for water for her son Ismail. In the midst of her running back and forth, water sprang up, as it were miraculously, from the earth, producing the well of Zamzam. And indeed, one of the rituals is drinking the water from Zamzam, and many will continue to drink water from Zamzam throughout. But also many, in small vials and bottles, bring samples of that water home to distribute to friends and family, commemorating the Hajj. According to Islamic tradition, both Hagar and Ismail are buried in an enclosed area next to the Kaaba. A ritual that some have seen, but not too many non-Muslims, unless you've seen recently some of the better programs that have showed many of the rituals of the Hajj, is the casting of 7 pebbles. It's a symbolic stoning. Pebbles are cast at a stone pillar, symbolizing Ibrahim's rejection of Satan's temptation that Abraham not follow God's command and sacrifice his son. A climax to the pilgrimage is the assembling of these 2 million Muslims at the plain of Arafat. This is where Muhammad delivered his farewell sermon. And for as far as the eye can see, tents can be seen over valleys on the sides of mountains erected to house these pilgrims who spend hours there reflecting on God and reflecting on Muhammad's sermon, in which Muhammad said, "Hear me, O people, for I know not if I ever shall meet with you in this place after this year. I have left among you that which, if you hold fast to it, shall preserve you from all error." A clear indication, the book of God and the word of his prophet. And then Muhammad recited to them the last revelation that he had just received. "This day the disbelievers despair of prevailing against your religion. So fear them not, but fear me. This day have I perfected for you your religion, fulfilled my favor unto you, and it has been my good pleasure to choose Islam for you as your religion." And indeed, Muslims will spend hours here at the plain of Arafat, talking, exchanging news and information, as well as reflecting religiously. On the Hajj, there is this exchange of information, as there always has been, both of news, mundane, as well as sacred, and a certain amount of trading being done also. The Hajj ends with the Eid al-Adha, the feast that comes at the end of the Hajj. It is celebrated not only by those on pilgrimage, but Muslims around the world. This is the Feast of Sacrifice. It is a day for prayer, a day for sacrificing an animal, sheep, or some other acceptable animal, commemorating again Abraham's ability to substitute an animal for the sacrifice of his son, Ismail. The excess meat will be distributed to the poor. Again, this feast is one of grand celebration in which Muslim families come from far and wide, come home as it were, to celebrate. Members come together, share meals, go to the mosque. In some societies it lasts for days, even weeks. Those who have made the Hajj leave with the right to put a prefix before their name, to refer to themselves as Al-Hajj or Haji, indicating that they are pilgrims, they have made the pilgrimage. Now, we have the 5 pillars of Islam. But at times, popularly, jihad has been referred to as the 6th pillar of Islam. It's important to note that it is not the 6th pillar of Islam in any formal sense. It has no such official status. We will be dealing with jihad more extensively later when we talk about the worldview of the Quran. But I think it's important here to speak briefly to the concept of jihad, because in many ways, jihad represents the entire vocation of the Muslim. Jihad in the Quran means jihad fi sabil Allah, to struggle in the path or in the way of God. And so that struggle to be a good Muslim, as an individual and as a member of a community, is encapsulated in the term jihad. It is the struggle to realize God's will, to actualize God's will in history. It is the struggle to lead a virtuous life, to fulfill the universal mission of Islam, to spread the Islamic community. Today, popularly, it can be used to describe a personal struggle, to keep the fast of Ramadan, to be good, to fulfill family responsibilities, to be a good student, to clean up a neighborhood, to fight drugs, to work for social justice. More specifically, jihad can also mean the struggle for and defense of Islam. And in this sense, it is sometimes referred to as a sacred struggle or popularly holy war. Despite the fact that jihad is not supposed to include aggressive, offensive, as distinct from defensive warfare, this has occurred throughout history. Much as Christians develop a just war theory, but often some of those wars, the justice all depends, as with beauty, the eye of the beholder. Muslim rulers have used jihad to legitimate their imperial designs and expansion. In contemporary times, religious extremists, the assassins of Anwar Sadat, the former president of Egypt, those like Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, masterminds of terrorist attacks, carried out most recently in 9/11 and subsequently also in Indonesia. Those who engage in acts of global terrorism have often attempted to legitimate what they do by referring to them, these actions, as a jihad. But as we shall see in our discussion, the Islamic tradition is quite specific in laying out rules and regulations, not just Islamic law, but the Quran itself, in terms of when and how the defense of the community is to take place. When is it legitimate to fight? When is violence legitimate? When is it illegitimate? Who can fight? Who may not fight? Who is exempted? And so, as we bring this lesson to a close, let's think then about the 5 pillars and their importance. Because from the 7th century to today, however much Islamic faith has been subject to interpretation and reinterpretation, however much divisions have come up and differences among Muslims, however diverse culturally and politically, for all who claim to be Muslim, there are these 5 simple observances, the 5 pillars of Islam, that they share in common. There are these 5 simple things: the confession of faith, prayer, pilgrimage, fasting, tithing or almsgiving. These 5 activities are what make an observant Muslim a Muslim.